Autism is a disorder, I guess, in the brain that enables kids' thinking process.
I'm pretty sure it's a social disorder where it makes it difficult for them to learn.
I think Down syndrome is when someone has a learning disability and can't do normal things that we can do.
I think it's when a child has learning disabilities and is slower than others.
I don't exactly know what Down syndrome is or what it really causes it.
I know autism's like when people are kind of socially interactive or awkward.
It's just when people are born and their brain works differently than other people.
Down syndrome is a condition where kids just can't be normal like everybody else.
I think it's a disease that causes people to be impaired.
I honestly don't know. I think it's something to do with a social disorder, but that's about all I know.
I think Down syndrome is when somebody's born just a little bit differently than everybody else and their brain functions differently than the average human.
I have absolutely no idea.
Autism really is a developmental disorder. They call it in the DSM-4, which is the psych book for diagnosing, they call it a pervasive developmental disorder. It affects communication, it affects your social interaction with people, and there's usually some type of restricted stereotypic behavior, like the need for routines or a behavior that is repeated over and over again.
From what I've found, just from the ones that I've met and gotten to know, they're fun. They make you think. They tend to have disabilities that include speech, motor issues. Sometimes they have some physical issues going on, but they're all different, and so you can't, like I said, you can't fit that circle peg into a square box.
If a student's having difficulty, there's a whole process they go through. But you can get what we might call a diagnosis on the outside, or a diagnosis from, like a psychiatrist or something, if you come to the table with that. Or if you're concerned, if the teacher's concerned that a student has autism, we have screening, and we have a whole team called the ADOS team that'll do an evaluation under AZ services. You could have an OT, a special ed teacher. A lot of times there might also be therapists involved, because anxiety can be another piece with autism. A lot of times that not knowing how to socially interact leads to some anxiety in situations. So I would say what's different about having autism as opposed to another disability is that the services have to be more comprehensive.
Well, it depends on that person. Again, it's very individual. Most of them do receive some sort of speech. As they get up to high school, a lot of the speech is done within the classroom. So I will work with the speech therapist on what they need. Another thing that we might do is we might bring in the occupational therapist. The occupational therapist might be working with them if they're really struggling with motor skills. And the physical therapist would come in and help. For example, if that student wanted to do PE, it's important to have that inclusion. So we may call on the physical therapist to help us figure out a way to have them be part of the PE class, but take those, with certain students, so you need to make sure that you're taking that into consideration, and the physical therapist is educated on how to keep that student safe with that.
Well, I just think that parents should get the support they need. It's really hard. I'm a parent of 3 young children, and I've worked really closely with parents in the beginning of the process. It's really hard when you're told that and I don't know what that feels like. I can only really sympathize, but when you're told about this diagnosis, like all the things that you're thinking about that your student might face.
Stay on top of it. Be consistent. Don't spoil. Get as much speech therapy as you can, and don't give up. And just go along with it. It's fun. I mean, some days it is. Some days it's really hard. I cried for about 3 years. I cried a lot. Nope, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the one thing that I hope somebody will see this and maybe in this situation gets from it is, yes, when we learned that Ben had Down syndrome, it was like losing a child. I mean, it's devastating. But Ben,
because we didn't know what to expect.
But Ben has been the greatest blessing that God could have ever given us.
Absolutely.
So we had support when we found this out from a couple that we didn't know who came to visit us. And I remember the husband telling me, he said, I know what you're going through, and I know that it seems like it's going to be horrible, but one day you'll understand what I'm saying. And I do now. And I hope somebody will see this that gets that.
No, on the Outer Banks in Dare County schools, we need services.
For specifically with autism or with everything?
Yeah, with everything, yeah.
You know, what kind of things that would really be helpful to him? You know, just in the
Well, you know, just if the teachers could be more aware, and well, they need to be taught. They don't, you know, if they could just all if we could have services down here for the teachers, as far as like if, you know, these people can come down from Greenville and show the teachers, come here, because a lot of people can't travel for 3 days to go to Greenville. If we could just get people to come here and train the teachers, and because, you know, if you have autism, there's no cure. You can adapt, but it takes the teacher and the parent to teach the child to adapt. It's just, you know, it's one of those things.
And it's very limited. And I think we just really had that realization this morning when we're talking about Ben, who really next year is going to be his last year here. So we have some decisions to make for him, you know, what he will do after that. In Virginia, there's a place called Eggleston Services, and it's just the most amazing organization where the special needs kids, they provide them with employment. And they've been embraced by a lot of the businesses in the area. We don't have anything like that here, so that's going to be tough. So we're planning to go visit there and just see the mechanics of how it works, and if maybe it's something that they could bring here, or maybe we could help to implement here.
You know, a lot of people want to stereotype children with, or people with autism. You know, I've had a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to take them to Las Vegas to count cars because that was in Rain Man. I get a lot of that. The only time that he was ever picked on is at church, believe it or not. When we went to a church, I'm not going to tell you where, because, and that we left, and yeah, that was the only time.
But there are some bad teachers out there, and one thing that we didn't mention to you, Ben did have a really horrible teacher in the school system here, and I happened to walk in one day. I just had an uneasy feeling. You know, it's just one of those things I think that God blesses mothers with. I had a feeling that I needed to come check on Ben. So when I got to the school, it was in the elementary school here. He wasn't in the classroom, but I saw the other children, so I thought it was odd. Well, there's like this little closet that would connect one classroom from another. Ben was sitting in there, crying uncontrollably with snot all over him, and I could tell he had been in there for a while. He was a complete mess. So the teacher, when she spotted me, she knew that it was going to be really horrible, and it was. We didn't stop until she was fired, and the last we heard, we were promised that she would never be able to teach again. My
son takes everything very literally. For the longest time, when I used to say, "Oh, you crack me up," he would check me to see if I was cracking.
We have a son, Ben Abrams, who has Down syndrome. He's very active, very social, and he goes to First Flight High School.
He has to have the same thing for lunch. He touches his food every time he eats it. It's so funny. He'll sit at the table, and if it's, especially if it's something different, like if he hadn't had it, he'll just poke it and poke it and poke it. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Just seeing if it's too hot and see what it feels like. See if it'll taste good."
If there's something he wants, Ben knows how to get it. There's a story that I just told this morning about he loves fish, and we were having chicken for dinner one night. We were eating outside, so Ben didn't show up right away. He came outside and said, "There's a fire." So I ran upstairs, and he had taken a fish from the refrigerator, trying to fillet it himself.
Oh, wow.
And he had out all the fixins to make a fish sandwich with French fries. And he had the presence of mind to realize, okay, I think that this is getting out of control. I need to let someone know. So fortunately, he told us. So I was able to turn the fire off on the stove and things like that. But he actually had the fish in the sink trying to fillet it. So, you know, there was something he wanted, and he had a very general idea of how to go about getting it.
Funny story. My funniest story is, well, one of them is when he was in kindergarten. He wore some drawstring shorts, and it was his first day of school. And they went to PE, and the drawstring was on the inside of the shorts. And everybody was like, "Oh, this child has autism. We have to just watch him. There's like all these people around him." And so he's playing and he's having a good time, and then he just pulls off his shorts. And they're all like writing all this down on trouble, And so no one told him to pull up his shorts or why did he do it or anything. They're just writing all this stuff down. And so I'm like, whatever. I'm just like, "Jake, why did you pull down your shorts?" "Because I had a cockroach in my pants." I'm like, "You didn't have a cockroach in your pants, it was your drawstring. Now, what would you do if you thought you had a cockroach in your pants?" The first thing you would do if you were 6 years old. Pull down your shorts.
Some of the things that Ben is obsessed with is music. And he has been since he was born. We had Indian flute music being played while he was being delivered, and he was hooked on that for years. He could be crying uncontrollably, and all we would have to do is put on flute music, and just like that, problem solved. And he loves it. And it will move him so much. Sometimes when he's listening to opera, it actually brings him to tears.
He won't listen to country.
Right, it's the only thing no tolerance for country music.
And I'll tell you, I never really got a really good grasp of it until I went to a conference in Greenville that Teach puts on. And what they told you to do was take a spelling test, and they wanted you to use your non-dominant hand. And they said, "Okay, we're going to give you 20 spelling words, and use your left hand, or if you were right-handed, use your left. If you were left, use your right." And then they would start off with cat, and you're like, "Oh God, this is easy." And then dog, and then chrysanthemum, and then she got really fast, and I was just like, I was so overwhelmed and I was so anxious, and that's how my son feels every single day.
My name is Jake Slagle. I'm in 9th grade.
Do you feel different sometimes?
Yeah.
Why do you think you feel different?
Because I don't eat new foods.
Hi. I'm a baby. Ben.
Your name's Ben?
Oh yeah.
Do you feel different being in Miss Am's class?
Yes,
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
Why do you think you feel different?
Can we tell me what you die? Because what?
How do people sometimes make you feel different?
Well, I'm not sure.
Not sure? Okay. Do they tease you?
They don't tease me all the time.
Yeah, okay. What would you like to say to the people that tease you or treat you differently? What would you want to say to them?
Please, I don't like that. It's not cool.
Do you think you're special?
Yeah, I remember what I said. Yes,
You think you're special Why do you think you're special?
I can't tell because my mom says that.
Your mom says that?
Yeah.
Do you sometimes get upset when you don't understand things like other people?
Yes.
And is that really frustrating?
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
How do you sometimes act when you get frustrated?
I knock on the door. I kick the door.
You kick the door. Do people get upset when you do that?
Yes.
But do you tell them that you're just upset?
Yes.
What else do you do when you're upset?
Tell the teacher.
And what else?
Ask her how you feel.
And tell me what else you do when you get really upset.
Alright.
Do you yell?
No. Yes.
Do you jump up and down?
No. Yes.
And are those some of the things that you're trying to learn how to deal with?
I mean, if you see somebody that has special disabilities, I don't think you should really avoid them or walk around them. Like if you see them walking by themselves or just with a teacher advisor and they're just walking by themselves, or if they're just they drop something, or if they look like they need help a little bit, I don't think you should really ignore that just because they are different. Like you should definitely help them, just like you would any other person that drops their book on the floor in the school or something.
I would just say, I mean, if you see someone alone or someone maybe just like when people talk to them kind of look shy about it, don't turn them away because they look shy. Like just try and open up because maybe they are autistic and maybe they do feel like bad for themselves. But don't pity on them. Just bring them up a little bit, get them some self-confidence, and just talk to them. Everyone needs a friend.
Really, the saying is, you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism because it's such a varied disorder.
I think just get to know the person. If you have any interest at all in just getting to know somebody with special needs, take the time to get to know them, find out what they like to do, and do it with them. I think it's really important just to become friends with a person with special needs, because you may think you're doing it to help that person, which you are, but you're going to find that you're going to get rewarded also by getting to know that person as a friend.
The more people that know, the more, the staring will stop, and and the compassion will start, but
I say, very nice.
Yeah?
I don't like being teased. Please stop it.
Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate you talking to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really
Thank you. Cut.